Welcome, dear viewers, to another episode of Terrifying Tales. Today, we'll explore an eerie tale, bridging the gap between reality and the supernatural. An ordinary man, an ancient structure, and inexplicable attraction. Brace yourself as we step into the world of unknown. Welcome to Terrifying Tales. Are you ready to step into the world of the unseen and the unknown? Do you dare to tread the path that whispers of unspeakable horrors and uncanny mysteries? Brace yourself, dear viewer, as we embark on a journey to a realm where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, the natural collides with the supernatural. Imagine this: a man as ordinary as they come finds himself inexplicably drawn to an imposing structure, a relic of the past. A monument standing tall amidst the mundane, its stone walls exuding an aura of enigma and allure. Its very existence, an intriguing paradox of time and space. He feels an irresistible pull, a magnetic attraction that draws him into a world beyond his comprehension. His curiosity piqued, he ventures forth, stepping into the realm of the surreal. Unbeknownst to him, he has just crossed an unseen threshold, a border that separates the world he knows from a realm shrouded in mystery and the unknown. He is a stranger in this new world, a world that whispers tales of the past and murmurs of secrets long forgotten. This ancient dwelling, with its daunting stature and silent stories, becomes his new abode. But little does he know, his fascination with the past and the unseen would manifest into a reality far more unsettling than he could ever fathom. As he settles into his new surroundings, the house begins to reveal its hidden layers. It begins as a mere whisper, a fleeting shadow, an inexplicable chill. Slowly, the man starts to sense an unseen presence, a spectral watcher that lurks in the shadows. His reality starts to blur, his dreams become haunted with cryptic warnings, and an eerie sense of being watched begins to creep into his existence. Yet he remains, drawn by a morbid fascination with the unseen and the unknown. He embarks on a quest to unravel the mysteries of his spectral companion, digging deep into the house's past, its secrets, its tales of yore. He becomes entwined in a narrative spun by the dwelling itself, a narrative that threatens to consume his very existence. And as he delves deeper into the mystery, the dwelling reveals its true horror, unleashing a chilling reality that shatters his tranquility and forces him to confront the unseen entity that shares his space. Stay tuned as we unravel the chilling tale of the man and his haunted abode. Ever experienced an eerie sense of being watched within your own four walls? A chilling sensation of an unseen entity lying in wait? Picture for a moment an unsuspecting individual, an average man who dared to inhabit a dwelling as ancient as history itself, a towering monument of the past. This structure held firm against the relentless onslaught of time, a fortress of stories and secrets. Its walls whispered cryptic tales from yesteryears, ceilings narrated silent chronicles of forgotten epochs, and wooden floors creaked under the burden of countless ages. This place, with its hushed charisma, its foreboding might, irresistibly drew him in. He felt inexplicably called to the archaic monument, ensnared in its age-old grasp. A stranger to this world, he found himself the unwitting lead in a narrative woven by the dwelling itself. Crossing the threshold, he remained oblivious to the impending blurring of reality, to the unfathomable twist his life was about to take. His initiation was marked by shadowy apparitions sneaking furtively at the edge of his vision, fleeting spectres that danced behind his eyelids before vanishing into thin air. He dismissed them as figments of his imagination, mere illusions born of fatigue in unfamiliar surroundings. Yet the abnormalities persisted. He began to experience an unexplainable chill, a chilling draught that snaked through tightly sealed rooms. He noticed the house's strange play with temperatures. One moment a cosy haven, the next a freezing tomb. Forced to wrap himself in layers, despite the scorching summer, or perspire in the bone-chilling winter, he attributed these fluctuations to the caprices of the ancient architecture. Weeks passed, and his initial puzzlement morphed into a gnawing fear. It was a relentless spectre, a sinister shadow that tormented his solitude. a brooding presence that cast spectral shadows across his tranquility. A chilling premonition of never being alone, of sharing his space with an unseen entity, a nameless dread. This fear, this horrifying sense of being under constant surveillance, hung in the air like a tangible presence, heavy and oppressive. His nights were invaded by this unseen entity, disturbed by its malevolent presence. His dreams teemed with sinister spectres and cryptic warnings, his slumber shattered by inexplicable sounds that echoed through the silent corridors like distant screams. Yet a bizarre fascination held him captive. Despite the fear, he found himself ensnared by the mystery. For he was caught in a macabre tango with the unknown, a dance orchestrated by the house and its buried secrets, haunted by its walls. And as he peeled away the layers, he discovered the house was more than a physical structure. It was a vault of forgotten memories, a custodian of hidden secrets, a silent sentinel of the past, a portal between the tangible and intangible. And then, on an ominously silent night, the true horror was unleashed. Under the cold, baleful gaze of the moon, a man found himself jerked mercilessly from the clutch of slumber by a sound so petrifying it seemed to claw at his very soul. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, manic and frantic, echoing around the hollow void of his chest like the cacophonous beats of a death knell. The sound of it was so deafening it swallowed all other noise, becoming the unnerving soundtrack to his spiraling terror. Next, a whisper slithered forth, a menacing hiss that seemed to rise from the very bowels of the earth beneath him. His name was uttered in a voice so twisted, so grotesque, it mirrored the grating growls of an ancient, malevolent entity. The syllables coiled around him like a venomous mist, injecting him with an icy dread that froze the marrow in his bones. The room, once a sanctuary of comfort and familiarity, now felt sinister and menacing, morphed into a nightmare stage by the eerie moonlight. The silvery glow of the moon seemed to touch everything, lending an ethereal and spectral luminescence that made everything appear unearthly and spectral. Inanimate objects around him began to stir, prodded into an unnatural animation by an invisible force. His cherished chair creaked and swayed menacingly, as if bearing the weight of some unseen phantom. His bookshelf trembled, the books shivering as if in the grip of a cold terror. Then began a horrific waltz. Seemingly granted a grotesque semblance of life, the items in the room moved in a synchronized, macabre dance. They swirled and swayed as if maneuvered by ghostly puppeteers, dancing to a silent, chilling tune. The sight was both horrifying and mesmerizing, a grotesque spectacle that held him captive in a paralyzing mix of terror and awe. His breath caught in his throat when he spotted an ominous figure looming at the foot of his bed. A shadowy spectre, darker than the surrounding gloom, sculpted from the very darkness that enveloped the room. Its malevolent presence was so chilling it seemed to suck the warmth from his blood. The room was heavy with a tangible dread that settled on his skin, raising goosebumps. The merciless ticking of the clock seemed to grow louder, each second an agonizing eternity, ticking towards an unknown, inevitable doom. The sinister figure at the end of his bed undulated, its form morphing with each passing second. It oscillated between a towering skeletal menace and a hunched, grotesque form, as if bearing the weight of countless tormented souls. It was a terrifying enigma, a demon existing on the precipice of his comprehension and utter madness. Suddenly the demon lunged, its form blurring into a terrifying onslaught of darkness. His scream was consumed by the enveloping shadows as a tsunami of terror crashed over him, and then all was consumed by an impenetrable darkness. Upon awakening, he was struck by the terrifying realization that he was to face an entity so abhorrent that the mere thought of it could shatter the bravest of souls. An icy dread gripped him as he felt himself being sucked into a whirlpool of terror. Even though he was no stranger to horror, the malignant spectre was something his mind couldn't grasp, let alone fight. An entity of unimaginable darkness, it was a nightmarish aberration that invaded his world. Fear pounded through his veins, each heartbeat echoing the sheer intensity of his terror. His breath seemed to choke him, a grim premonition of the terrible fate that awaited him if he dared to confront the creature alone. A solution was needed, and he needed to find it quickly. Suddenly, a recollection struck him like a lightning bolt, a story he had heard years ago in the hushed whispers of the local tavern. He called on the aid of a grizzled priest, a figure of whispered legends known for vanquishing the most insidious of horrors. The priest's repute was of a man who wielded extraordinary powers, a beacon of hope against the supernatural with his unwavering courage and unbreakable faith. He was the conquering hero who had driven the foulest of demons back to the abyss they crawled out from. As Priest walked in, the entity reacted with a fury that could curdle the blood of the stoutest warriors. The house seemed to grow sentient, its walls shaking violently as the entity roared inhumanly. The air grew thick with an ominous stench of sulphur and fear, signifying the entity's reign of terror. Against the backdrop of this terror, the priest stood firm, his face a hardened mask of determination and unyielding faith. He began to chant, his voice piercing through the fog of fear. The entity shrieked back, a sound so terrible it rattled the house to its very foundations. The priest's steadfastness only seemed to fuel the creature's rage, its power surging menacingly. The priest soldiered on, his hands clenched around his rosary, his forehead glistening with a layer of sweat. He was a rock against the relentless tide of darkness, his faith an impenetrable force against the entity's vicious attacks. The tension mounted as the struggle intensified. The entity became more ferocious, its blood-curdling roars echoing through the house, chilling the soul. Yet the priest refused to back down, his voice steadily rising above the terrifying cacophony, his faith unyielding against the monstrous entity. The battle raged seemingly endlessly, the priest and the entity locked in a terrifying dance of survival. The spectators could only watch in silent horror, their hearts threatening to burst out their chests. The tension was almost unbearable, the uncertainty of the outcome hanging over them like a guillotine. The climax came when the priest uttered the final words of the exorcism, the house convulsing violently as if in its death throes. The entity let out a final, forlorn roar, a sound so awful it seemed to tear through reality itself. And then there was silence. The priest, triumphant but drained, let out a sigh of relief. The battle was won, the entity was banished, the man was once more free. As the final rays of sunlight succumbed to the impending darkness, the man found himself standing alone, amid swirling dust particles and heavy silence. A hollow shell of his former self, his frail form was etched with the unmistakable tinge of recent struggle. In his trembling hands he clutched a crucifix, its cold surface a stark reminder of harrowing ordeal. His gaze fell upon the priest, a pillar of faith in the midst of his overwhelming despair. The man, still catching his breath from the nightmare that had recently released him, looked at the priest with gratitude. The priest, a silent sentinel, stood resilient against the dusk-lit backdrop, his figure a stark contrast against the dying glow of the day. A surge of relief washed over the man as he met the priest's eyes. He tried to voice his gratitude, but his words were imprisoned by the crippling terror that still gripped him. Summoning all his strength, he managed to whisper, "Thank you." His voice, though hoarse, echoed throughout the room, a testament to his gratitude that was palpable in the air. But the priest, a seasoned warrior against such unseen evil, wore an expression of caution. Nodding at the man, he acknowledged his thanks but warned him of the impending danger. The battle, he knew, was far from over. With measured steps he moved towards the exit, his silhouette gradually swallowed by the looming darkness. Upon reaching the door, he paused, his hand on the doorknob, casting a final glance at the man. His voice sliced through the silence, a sharp reminder. "But remember, once a demon knows you, it is bound to come back for you." His chilling words hung in the air, a grim prophecy echoing within the confines of the room. The man, his heart sinking, watched as the priest departed, leaving him alone with the eerie of the house. As the night fully descended, casting long, sinister shadows across the room, a sense of foreboding settled over him. Was his house truly purged of its demonic presence? Or was the silence merely a precursor to the storm that was yet to come? His eyes flitted nervously across the room, the creaking of the floorboards sending chills down his spine. The crucifix in his hand felt heavier, its mere presence a stark reminder of his past ordeal. Alone and on guard, he braced himself against an unseen enemy whose terrifying presence he had once endured. Is the house truly free of its malevolent presence? Or is it merely biding its time, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again? The uncertainty hung in the air, thick and palpable, a chilling prelude to the suspenseful gloom that now engulfed the house. Just when he thought he was safe, the man started noticing familiar signs of the demon's presence. The temperature in the room dropped abruptly, a chill seeping into his skin and sinking into his bones. He could feel the looming presence, a cold dread spreading throughout his body. The shadows in the room seemed to dance, their movements unnatural and in sync with the rhythm of his pounding heart. The whispers, once a distant echo, resurfaced, their chilling tone reverberating within the confines of the room. A cold gust of wind blew through the room, carrying with it the scent of decay and the promise of impending doom. His heart pounded in his chest as he felt the hairs on the back of his neck rise. He turned around slowly, the crucifix clutched tightly in his hand. His eyes widened as he saw a dark figure standing in the corner of the room, its form undefined yet unmistakably menacing. The figure seemed to pulsate with an unspoken threat, its presence a chilling reminder of the recent past. The man felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead as he realized the horrifying truth. The demon had returned. The horror was far from over. He could hear his heart pounding in his ears, each beat a deafening reminder of his impending doom. The room was filled with a chilling silence, the only sound being the whispers that seemed to grow louder with each passing second. He swallowed hard, his throat dry and his body trembling with fear. As the realization hit him, he could feel his strength drain away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of despair. His knees buckled beneath him as he sank to the floor, the crucifix falling out of his hand and clattering onto the floor. The unseen tenant had returned, proving that some horrors are never truly gone. The man could only watch in helpless terror as the figure moved closer, its form growing more defined with each step. He knew then that his ordeal was far from over. The demon was back, and it was here to stay. Welcome back, dear viewers. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Terrifying Tales. The man's ordeal continues as the demon has returned. His dread is palpable, the fear seeping from every pore. His futile attempts to rid himself of the demon seem to have only made it stronger, angrier and more determined. He is trapped in a never-ending nightmare with no respite in sight. The shadows in his room have come alive, the whispers have returned, and the cold dread has once again made a home in his heart. He is left to wonder if he will ever be free, or if his life will forever be overshadowed by the demon's presence. The unseen tenant has returned, proving that some horrors are never truly gone. If you did enjoy this episode, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave us a comment about your thoughts. Your support helps us bring more such terrifying tales to you. We appreciate every like, every share, and every subscription. It's your support that keeps us going, that keeps us bringing these terrifying tales to life. Stay tuned for more. Until then, keep the lights on. Remember, the unseen is always watching, always waiting. The man's ordeal is far from over, and neither is our journey into the abyss. Until next time, remember, not all who wander are lost, but some who stay find themselves in the clutches of the unseen. Good night, and remember, keep the lights on.